Legendary and mythical Pokemon. As long as the Pokemon franchise has existed, these rare and elusive creatures have captured the interest of many a Pokemon trainer. And honestly, why wouldn't they? They're rare, they're strong, they look cool, most of the time at least. The announcement of new legendary Pokemon events used to be a monumental and exciting thing for fans, but as many others before me have stated, legendary Pokemon events aren't what they used to be. It's fairly common to hear fans say some variation of the phrase, Pokemon events have changed, but few people seem to talk about why they've changed, or how the technology in handheld consoles has progressed in a way that supports that change in the almost 25 years since Pokemon Red and Green first released in Japan. Special Pokemon distributions date back to the beginning of the franchise, and the expansive history of events can all be attributed to the actions of one man, Shigeki Morimoto. Morimoto famously programmed the Pokemon Mew into the code of Pokemon Red and Green only weeks before its release. It was intended to be a secret in-joke for developers, and there was originally never any intent to distribute Mew outside of the development team. Because of this, there's no way to obtain this secret Pokemon in the original games without the use of external cheating or exploits. This all changed, however, when Game Freak president Satoshi Tajiri decided to give away promotional trading cards for Mew through CoroCoro Comics magazine, which triggered an absolute uproar from fans who wanted to obtain this secret and elusive rare Pokemon, inevitably kicking off the idea for special and limited giveaways and distributions. Unlike consoles of today, the original Game Boy was extremely bare bones in terms of its connectivity options, only sporting support for a single wired link cable. This made the distribution options for Pokemon like Mew in Generation 1 extremely limited, since the game cartridge would need to be physically present in order to receive an event download. This limitation was combated in a number of ways, including mail-based giveaways and special in-person events. The first Pokemon distribution event was held in Japan in April of 1996 through the previously mentioned CoroCoro Comics magazine. Players were given 1 month from the date of publication to send a postcard to Pokemon developer Game Freak for the chance to win one of 20 special distribution versions of Mew. In order to receive their prize, winners of this giveaway were required to mail their copy of Pokemon Red or Green to Game Freak in order to have the special Pokemon transferred to their cartridge. Giveaways in this fashion would prove to be a trend for early Mew distributions, as a number of mail-based contests would be held over the course of the following year. In November of 1997, attendees of the Nintendo Space World event in Japan were given the ability to download Mew onto their game using special rigs known as Mew machines. Very little is known about these devices, but these units were prevalent during the international distribution tours for Mew, seeing use through December of 2000 at the Christmas time tour in Germany before being retired. Mew wouldn't make its way to the West until fall of 1999 as a bonus gift for attending the Pokemon League Nintendo training tour in select cities across the United States. Players who weren't able to attend this tour would later be given the opportunity to win one of 1,000 copies of the elusive Pokemon through Nintendo Power Magazine, in a similar fashion to the first Mew distribution in Japan. With the overwhelming success of both Mew and its distribution events, it made sense that Game Freak would want to follow that up by introducing another mythical Pokemon into the upcoming sequels to Pokemon Red and Green. This new mythical Pokemon, Celebi, was mostly distributed in similar fashion to Mew from the previous generation, due to Pokemon Gold and Silver releasing on the original Game Boy, despite its emphasis on the enhanced functionality with the Game Boy Color. Updated versions of the Mew machines were used to distribute Celebi at a number of events, including Nintendo Space World 2000 in Japan and the Pokemon Fun Fest Tour in the United States during fall of 2001. Similar to its predecessor, Celebi was also distributed in limited quantities via giveaways in Nintendo Power Magazine and on the Pokemon website. One major thing that set Celebi apart from Mew was the introduction of the GS Ball event in Japan. By connecting your Game Boy Color to a Japanese cell phone using the mobile Game Boy adapter, you could download an item to your game called the GS Ball. This event item would unlock a short side quest with the Pokeball specialist Kurt, and allow you to capture and battle Celebi when placed on the shrine in Ilex Forest. Although this event was never localized outside of Japan, it would finally make its way to the West 17 years later in 2018, as a post-game bonus in the Virtual Console release of Pokemon Crystal on the Nintendo 3DS. The GS Ball also marks the first instance of a distribution exclusive key item, which allows the player to unlock in-game events where they can catch rare event exclusive Pokemon. This would later become a staple for events in future releases. Moving into Generation 3 with Ruby and Sapphire, the technical leap from the Game Boy and Game Boy Color to the Game Boy Advance opened up a ton of opportunities to include legendary and mythical Pokemon events in new and interesting ways. Game Freak took full advantage of this using the new hardware and its associated peripherals. At the 2003 Electronic Entertainment Expo, and later in the November issue of Nintendo Power magazine published the same year, the Pokemon Company distributed the Eon Ticket, a promotional trading card made for use with the Nintendo e-reader add-on for the Game Boy Advance. By connecting your copy of Pokemon Ruby or Sapphire to a system with the e-reader plugged in, the Eon Ticket could be scanned into your game, giving you access to the location Southern Island, where you can catch the legendary Pokemon Latias or Latios depending on which game you own. Typically, only one of these Pokemon is available in each version without the use of trading, so this added a way to obtain both for people who didn't have access to multiple copies. After scanning an Eon Ticket, the original owner could then pass a limited number of copies to other players by mixing records during a trade or battle, giving people without the e-reader a way to access the event. Mixing records is also the only way to gain access to the Eon Ticket and Southern Island in Pokemon Emerald, as the mystery gift functions differently than in Ruby and Sapphire. The Eon Ticket and record mixing concept would later make a return in the Generation 3 remakes Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, where players with an Eon Ticket could pass it along to other copies of the game via the Street Pass functionality on the Nintendo 3DS. Generation 3 also introduced two new mythical Pokemon, Jirachi and Deoxys. Jirachi was distributed in a number of different ways depending on your region. In Japan, it was given away to the first 200,000 people who purchased advance tickets to the 6th Pokemon movie, Jirachi Wishmaker. In Europe, you could receive Jirachi as a bonus for completing the Pokemon spin-off title, Pokemon Channel. This feature was exclusive to the European version, so if you were in the US like me and sat through the entirety of Pokemon Channel as a kid trying to get Jirachi, I am so sorry. The US received their Jirachi distribution in the form of a pre-order bonus disc for the GameCube title Pokemon Colosseum. The Colosseum bonus disc also had the added advantage of patching out the infamous berry glitch that I talked about in my previous video on Pokemon Box Ruby and Sapphire. The other mythical Pokemon, Deoxys, was distributed in a similar manner to Mew and Celebi from the first two generations. In 2003, 2004, and 2005, the Pokemon Rocks America Tour was held in select cities across the United States, and allowed players to download select event items to unlock Pokemon that aren't typically accessible without the use of cheating. The first of these items was the previously discussed Eon Ticket that grants the player access to Southern Island and Latias or Latios. The second was the Aurora Ticket, which unlocks the location Birth Island, where you can battle and capture Deoxys after solving a small puzzle. And third was the Mystic Ticket, which allows the player to access Naval Rock, a special event area where you can catch the Generation 2 box legendaries Lugia and Ho-Oh. This was the first of two events in Generation 3 that let players catch legendary and mythical Pokemon that weren't originally native to the Hoenn region in Ruby and Sapphire. During the same year as the final Pokemon Rocks America Tour, Japanese players who attended Pokemon Fiesta were treated to a similar distribution event for the Old Sea map, an item that lets you travel to the location Faraway Island so you can catch Mew. Although this event was never released internationally, Faraway Island marks the first time in Pokemon history where you could battle and catch Mew without the use of glitches or cheating. Generations 1 through 3 set the precedence for what Pokemon distributions could and should be, introducing a number of unique and memorable events alongside mysterious and elusive creatures with interesting lore, concepts of which were only expanded upon in future generations. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to be notified when I upload part 2, where we'll be going over generations 4, 5, 6, and onward. Until then, I'd love to hear any of your personal experiences with these events in the comments, and that's all I have to say about it, but who asked me?